Hello and welcome back to our first official episode, episode 1 of the Reverse Mentor Lab. You may have heard the trailer, but today we're back. We're back to record our first very own episode,
where we engage with thinkers from around the world to explore how leaders of today can learn from leaders of tomorrow.
You're back with your hosts. I'm Joshua.
And I'm Jens. So Joshua, what are we going to talk about today?
Jens, great to see you and great to be recording our first episode. So today what we've got on the agenda is reverse mentorship. And essentially what we're going to be talking about today is reverse mentorship and how it can add and offer a different dimension to your thinking and to your organization as a whole. So Jens, we're both passionate about reverse mentorship. It's a big part of our way of thinking. It's a big part of the way that we like to interact with people. And like you may have heard, if you're listening to this for the second time after listening to our trailer, you'll know that Jens and I are both passionate about people and about listening. So Jens, why do we think reverse mentorship is important and what can we do with it?
Yeah, so let's maybe start a little bit of what we think is reverse mentorship. Reverse mentorship is turning the normal mentorship model on its head, where we say a young thinker is mentoring an experienced thinker. So it's all about creating a space for thinkers to connect. It's all about learning and developing skills while being in a business context. And of course, we focus on the business context, but it's as valuable for personal relationships where experienced thinkers and young thinkers engage with each other. But it's really about helping each other to generate ideas, supporting each other and really understanding the needs of the other side so that basically both sides are able to learn from each other and looking into growing as a person going forward.
Yeah, and I sort of love how you framed that, Jens, because you really brought us back down to sort of what is reverse mentorship in terms of answering the why. And I think that, like I've mentioned, you and I are both extremely passionate about this space, and we're looking forward to creating more conversations about it because we do really believe that there's significant value to be unlocked by allowing young thinkers to share their thinking with experienced thinkers, and also for experienced thinkers to share their thinking with young thinkers. Because after all, we believe that mentorship in general is a bi-directional relationship. So Jens, maybe we can touch on some of our personal stories, some of our personal views in terms of how that's influenced our own thinking about reverse mentorship. So I'm going to hand the mic back to you and ask you to kick off again and maybe share a story or two about your stories of mentorship.
Yeah, personal story. Let's start with so I have two perspectives. One perspective is for a long time, I was always the youngest inside the areas I was doing. Working with an engineering background in a large retail company, and then working inside the property angle of that business was quite a lot of very experienced thinkers, very experienced people in that business. And I was always the young, distracting person in that journey. So I was always the young thinker for a long time until I got older, and now I'm the old thinker. No, it's not an old thinker. It's more an experienced thinker. Getting to a story. So, I mean, we're engaging with a couple of young thinkers since last year, roughly September, which was 2020 September. And what is quite interesting that I get so much out of the conversations we are doing, out of the interactions we are doing. And one specifically was interesting where we discussed around the business topic, which was, should companies be very, very transparent in everything they're doing? And coming from a corporate background, I was saying, yeah, to an extent, that's okay, but you're putting a lot of risk out there if you're completely transparent. You're putting a threat to your own employees if you're transparent. And then, of course, some of the young thinkers are saying, but no, you should be 100% transparent. You should say everything because that's how you build trust. So it's quite interesting to see these two different perspectives. And it's not about what is right or what is wrong. It's more about having a conversation around this topic. And I learned the perspective of the young thinkers, where I said, hey, I haven't seen it from that perspective, because I was kind of so long in this guy big corporate setting where it was always how do you protect the brand rather than how can you share 100% and whatever happens with that. So maybe there's something that the truth of it is somewhere in the middle, but it's quite interesting to have this conversation. And I think if it is in a business setting where you do this in a large corporation, you have this conversation internally, I think it will open up a completely different perspective than you have ever had. So that's just one of the many examples I have just in the recent 6 months going into more interactions with young thinkers myself and in a more structured way. What about you, Joshua?
Yeah, Jens, I love how you sort of framed that and where you said, you've learned different things from just absorbing different perspectives. And it goes back to some of the deeper views that we have on listening and the importance of people inside different rooms of all generations. And I think in sort of framing, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about mentorship, but particularly in reverse mentorship, is because of the opportunities that I've been given. And those opportunities have come due to a number of circumstances, but I've also said yes to a lot of things which I maybe shouldn't have said yes to. But it's largely come because of the importance of people. And people have trusted me. And sometimes I've sat in boardrooms where I've been the youngest person inside of that room. And there have been a few sort of half looks at me saying, okay, well, Josh, like, why are you in this specific boardroom? But I think that it's because of trust, because I had the fortunate opportunity to work with a very close friend now who was my mentor and still is my mentor in South Africa. And he gave me those opportunities. He gave me those opportunities and he threw me in the deep end. And so from those opportunities, I really took a step back, and in reflecting in them, specifically over the last couple of years, I've said that's something that I would really like to try and foster inside of different organizations and facilitate those interactions right around the world with different thinkers cross-generationally. And that's why one of the reasons, like I mentioned, why I'm passionate about reverse mentorship. The second is why I'm passionate about people, is I think that in this highly digital technological age that we're living in, there's always this solution that we propose is, hey, let's throw some digital solution at it, or let's throw some technological solution at it. But I think people are really at the heart of everything that we do. And the importance of that is allowing people to learn from one another, but also to engage with different points of view, cross-generationally, but also cross-culturally and cross-languages inside of that space. And Jens, if I look at the interactions that we've just had over the last 6 to 8 months, I've grown tremendously from learning from you as a mentor, and I will call you my friend as well, because I know that while we haven't met in person yet, we've spent a lot of time together. And so sort of just wrapping up those three things around sort of the opportunities that I've been given, the people that I've had the fortunate opportunity to meet with and learn from. And then lastly, around how do we go about navigating this technological age that we're living in, which is really, I believe, people-centric and not so much technological-centric as a lot of people like to refer to it. So those are three of the reasons why I'm passionate about reverse mentorship, and looking forward to walking this journey inside of the Reverse Mentor Lab.
Yeah. Now, just double clicking on a couple of things you're mentioning, I think it's really as the heart is being open in building a relationship, and that always starts with giving. And we have discussed that quite a lot in the past as well. It's about not looking at it from a perspective of what you can get out of that relationship, which a lot of times happens in this fast-paced world where we are all in. A lot of businesses are looking into how can I grab as fast as possible the next spot? How can I earn as fast as possible money? I think relationship is built over time. It's not going to happen quickly. And if we look into the reverse mentorship perspective, specifically because I see, I mean, we're not so far from an age difference. Of course, there are a couple of years, almost a decade between us, but I think it's even more interesting if you engage with people who are 20 years apart and more, and then look into, hey, you might have a completely different way of thinking, but then it's, for me, that's the point where it's getting interesting, because what you can unleash with building a relationship and building trust with each other, I think is an opportunity which a lot of businesses might see that from a theoretical perspective, but don't do at all in a practical setting. And I think this, going from thinking that it is an opportunity to walking which is like getting the first try and error and just really getting into it is a fascinating journey. And I think that's what both of us are super interesting as well, get out into the world.
Yeah, and Jens, that ties so well and sort of builds a bridge to the next topic of discussion today, and that's how can we use reverse mentorship? How can organizations use reverse mentorship? And I'd love for you just to share a few words quickly on how businesses can get involved if they'd like to kickstart their own reverse mentor thinking, and what value we think it can unlock for them.
Yeah, so it's not too complicated, I would say. First is being open, and if you start with a leadership perspective, being open to do things, being open to explore things, engaging with young thinkers, and really, if we just take it from a first step approach, is if you're an executive and you're listening to this, if you're an experienced thinker or see yourself as an experienced thinker, then it's like you have the possibilities right away because you work in an organization. You're surrounded most probably by other people, and if you work with other people, there will be young thinkers, people who are thinking differently. So it's not always an age difference perspective, as well opening up to people thinking differently, and then it's just getting started in engaging with each other, building opportunities to do that.
Yeah, and I think maybe just to explore two things further there is about building out of those opportunities and also engaging with one another. And I think that sometimes, especially over the last 12 months, and we've obviously met during COVID times, is that we've been forced to be physically distanced. And I think that there are different ways and means that we need to think about enabling those conversations and engagement opportunities to take place, because one of the biggest ways and best ways to change business and to drive change is through enabling conversations. And I think that's one of the big things that we're looking to drive in creating this Reverse Mentor Lab. And if you go back to the trailer, you'll recall that, Jens, you described 3 ways that we're going to be sharing this content and prototyping it as we go along the way. And I think that the biggest thing is that this reverse mentor journey that we're on, it is a journey. It's exactly that. We're going to be learning from you. We're going to be learning from each other. And we're going to be learning from the thinkers that we get on the show and that we talk to from around the world. So I'm really excited about what the journey holds. And I know Jens he's got a lot on the go, but he's also extremely excited about what we can unlock and what you as the listeners and the watchers can unlock with reverse mentorship. So that's what we've chatted about today. We've chatted about reverse mentorship. Over the next couple of coming episodes, we'll maybe share some practical examples about how you can go about doing that inside of your organization and as a thinker yourself. So to wrap up, we're going to share a few words. I'm going to kick off first, and then I'm going to hand back to Jens to sort of close off today. So I've got a challenge for you. I'm going to out and out challenge you, and I'm going to say you can do this reverse mentorship thing right on yourself. And because I'm the young thinker on the podcast, I'm going to come at it from a young thinker's perspective. So if you're a young thinker, I challenge you to get to know your manager or your executive. And now that might feel extremely daunting, but I challenge you just to take that first step, because never be afraid to ask a silly question. The only silly questions are those that are never asked. And so if you're a young thinker, take that first step, send that manager or that executive an email that you've been wanting to chat to them, and set up a coffee chat, even if it is a 15-minute Zoom call. Because if you don't ask, you'll never know what could have come from that. Jens.
Yeah, same challenge. Me as the experienced thinker on this podcast. If you're an experienced thinker, you can do that as well. Take the first step in looking into who are the young thinkers in your organization and just pick one. Just say, hey, I would like to get to know you a little better. I would like to have a coffee with you. I would like to jump on a Zoom call. Whatever you do is taking the first step and not being scared that, hey, that there's something happening afterwards. It's more about getting out there and saying, hey, I will just try this. I will just engage with someone who is not thinking as I do, and I will explore what I can learn from that. So it's really getting out there, and you can even use it from a business perspective. Just talk about business. You don't need to talk about everything if you don't feel safe in that environment. Just say, hey, I'm having this thing from a business going on. Can you help me to explore this? So it's also contributing to what you're doing anyhow. And then maybe a relationship will build up over time and you explore different things with that. So really taking the first step and taking action is what we would like to encourage you to do.
Exactly that. So thank you to everyone for listening. Thanks for joining us for our very first episode of the Reverse Mentor Lab. And we look forward to learning and listening to every one of the thinkers that we bring onto this podcast platform going forward.
Yeah, and in case it's still too scary for you to do this inside your business or inside your environment, you're welcome to contact us. We have a website which is called the xyzplayground.com, where you could hook up with us. Just send us a note inside the website where we can then book a 50 minutes call, or you just email us. The email addresses are in the show notes. It's joshua@xyzplayground.com or it's jens@xyzplayground.com, and we can just set up a 50-minute coffee chat and see how we can help you or how we can enable you to help others inside of your organization. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening and watching. It was a pleasure, Joshua, being part of the first show again, and really, really looking forward to explore the totality of where we go with the Reverse Mentor Lab, because the lab says it in itself. It's something that's growing over time. It's something that will be changing, and where we will both learn together with all the listeners going forward. So looking forward to episode number 2.